Charlie. You've been such a strength for Dutchess County. The Chamber, thank you, all the Chamber members, all the guests who are here this morning. And I hope you're all enjoying a wonderful breakfast here at the Poughkeepsie Grand. I'd like to give a kudos, as always, to a particular lady who makes sure that everything here runs smoothly. Maureen Kangas of our Poughkeepsie Grand. Charlie, when we talk about Think Local First, the Poughkeepsie Grand is a great example of what we all do together as a community. I had the privilege of being at the EDC Awards last night and celebrating the strength that Dutchess County has in its cultural offerings, its educational institutions, its community organizations, its healthcare, and of course, its business community. I have been thinking local and buying local and of course living local here in the Hudson Valley for 24 years now. Well, thank you. And I cherish this place, and I cherish the opportunity to serve you. And I do see so many familiar faces here this morning. I want to thank you right now for having shared so much of your lives, your organizations, our nonprofits, our community organizations that I've visited. Thinking of the Children's Home and the Center for Prevention of Child Abuse. I just had the privilege of being at the opening of their, the start of their new project, their new building. I've been to many of our local businesses, and I've heard your stories. And it's my job to take what we live here, what you experience here, and use those lessons and that knowledge in Washington to make life here even better. We have such wonderful potential and such wonderful talent here in Dutchess County. Right now we have an economy that is not doing you justice. We need to have an economic climate that will let you grow and thrive. And we need a federal government that will trust you, and it certainly can, as I do, to make smart and sensible decisions in your own lives, in the life of your business, in the life of our community. So my job as your federal representative is to make sure that I lift the burdens that right now have been placed so heavily upon you by a federal government that has gone too far, that has reached too far. We need to bring the federal government to the right size to serve you. We need to make sure that the tax code serves you, that regulations don't choke your businesses, that energy prices do not thwart you in your everyday lives. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sean Patrick Maloney.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you, Frankie. Thank you, Charlie. My name is Sean Patrick Maloney. You may know that I worked for President Clinton. You may know some things about me, but let me just start by telling you, a little bit about how I grew up and what my values are. I grew up in a small town of about 4,000 people. My father started his own business when I was very young, and it wasn't much when he started. He had a one-room office above the town library. My mom sat at the desk in front of him, typing letters, and our dog was under that desk, and I used to go there every day after school. And when his business did a little better, he bought a little building, and my brothers and I went down and had to tear out the old carpet and patch up the roof, and I sanded the floors and put on polyurethane, and that's where his office was. And then my brothers joined that business with him, and they ran that business the whole time I was a kid. When I was still in kindergarten, I can remember he put a little black telephone in the basement, and it would ring at all hours of the day and night and on the weekend because he had a landline installed in our basement that was to his office. Nobody had ever done that in our town, and so if you called Jim Maloney at 11 o'clock at night, you thought, man, he's still at work. And you got great customer service. Those were his values, and that's what put me in college. That's what put Six was. He saved a couple bucks every month for each of us to go to college. He had 5 sons and a daughter. So I got to go to college. I ended up going to law school. I went to the White House, and the proudest moment of my life is when I brought my dad in to meet President Bill Clinton. And I'll tell you what, He and my mom never thought they would be standing there in the Oval Office with the President of the United States, but it was his small business that put me there. And when I got out of the White House, that's what I did. I started a small business, and we grew that business. I know what it's like to meet a payroll. I know how hard it is to provide good benefits and good health insurance for your employees, to train them, to stick with them, to find good talent, to buy locally, to invest in your own community. That's what I did. And we were lucky enough to do pretty well, and we sold that company, and it's a thriving subsidiary of a software company today. Those are the values I want to take to Washington. We need to support small business. It is the backbone of America. And in the Clinton administration, I don't think we got everything right, but man, we got the big things right. And we grew this economy. We created 800,000 jobs right here in New York. I think all of you remember what it was like when we were paying down the debt, when we were running surpluses, when we had limitless possibilities still ahead of us. That's what we need to do again. And we can do that if we make good choices again, if we balance the budget responsibly in the right way, if we invest in our people, in infrastructure, in education, if we get out of the way of small business and let you do what you do so well. Those are the values I'm going to bring to Washington. If you give me your voice and your vote, I'm going to get up every day, and I'm going to think about you, and I'm going to think about my own man, and I'm going to think about what works in the lives of regular people, and that's the kind of partner I'm going to be for you in Washington. Thank you for your time this morning. I look forward to taking your questions.
Okay, we'll start with the questions. The first question will go to Nan Hayworth. And you both have mics at your stations. Congressman Hayworth, if elected, what can you do to stimulate job opportunity and economic growth here in the Hudson River Valley?
Well, I've had the privilege of talking with men and women in businesses, especially small businesses, which are, of course, the engine of growth in our economy. And whenever I go to visit a place, I ask, well, how's business? And most of the time I get, well, we're doing okay, but we could be doing even better. And then I'll ask, well, what can I do as your representative in Congress to help you? And one answer I got from a very nice lady who has started a small cafe in the village of Warwick in Orange County, which is one of our many beautiful towns here in the Hudson Valley. And she said, you know, you can help me the most by getting out of the way, by getting government out of the way, by taxing me less. She's burdened with a lot of taxes right now, state and local and federal. So she'd like us to help with that, and we can. She said, you know, the regulations that are coming out of Washington are making it very hard on me. I hear all the time, as you can imagine, about healthcare costs. And this is, the 2010 health law was meant to be helpful, but what it's meant is that people's insurance costs have skyrocketed. So we've been working in the House of Representatives as hard as we can to try to lift those burdens, to try to make sure that the federal government has a budget. We passed 2 budgets in the House of Representatives. Unfortunately, the Senate has not passed a budget. We passed repeal and replacement measures for the Affordable Care Act. Well-intentioned, but the wrong law. We've tried to work to mitigate the consequences of Dodd-Frank that made consumer credit so hard to come by. We need to have a Senate that works with us. We need to keep the House of Representatives with people like me who understand our local issues, who understand our local problems, and are dedicated to lifting those burdens. Because if we do that, if we get government out of your way, I know that you will rise and thrive on your own.
Sean, if elected, what can you do to stimulate job opportunity and economic growth here in the Hudson River Valley?
Can you hear me now? There you go. Look, my family's been doing it for the last 16 years. My family started a business on the other side of the river. One of the things that business does is it helps construct and build green-friendly modular homes. This is great technology now where they can build super environmentally friendly and efficient homes. They can do them with modular construction in these amazing high-tech factories. And you can put these up anywhere at a fraction of the cost, and you can run them for a fraction of the cost. So we can create jobs in the process and make it cheaper to heat your home and cool your home all throughout the year. This is a company that builds these houses right in Port Jervis, over in Orange County. these are high-tech manufacturing jobs that has been part of what my family's been focused on for 16 years right here in the Hudson Valley. In addition to that, we can listen to people here who are telling us what they need from Washington. I mean, one of the things is to get out of their way. You bet, I agree with that. But man, if you're Jim Taylor over in Montgomery and you're trying to create a waste-to-energy plant that'll create renewable energy, 20 megawatts of renewable power, you need a federal partner too. He's got $45 million of his own money invested in it. He'll create 300 jobs tomorrow, right in a part of the valley that really needs them the most. But he needs a federal partner. So you've got to listen to folks when they say what they need. Then, and that's not a Democrat or Republican issue. He's got the support of all the Republican local elected folks over there, and he's a Republican himself. But when you talk to him, he says, if I don't get a federal loan guarantee and get a little help so I can put my private financing in place, and a lot of you probably know what this is like, trying to get private financing, I'm dead in the water. That guy can create 300 jobs right there tomorrow. Those are good projects. We need to get these kind of green jobs, the economy of the future, in high-tech manufacturing right here in the Hudson Valley. It's what I've spent a good part of my time in government working on. I also created the Public-Private Partnership Commission in New York to get billions of dollars of investment spending going, public and private dollars working together. That's what we need to do in Washington.
Sean, how would you address concerns about costs for gasoline, home heating oil, and energy in general?
Oh, well, this is very important. I mean, look, one of the most important things the federal government does is to continue policies that will keep the energy prices low. If we don't have cheap energy in America, our economy is going to grind to a halt. But that doesn't mean that we should stay dependent forever on foreign oil, and it doesn't mean we should have to keep sending our kids overseas to fight wars that at their root are about our dependence on foreign oil. For example, we've got to keep going with things like wind power, production tax credit. A lot of the conservative folks in Washington don't want to support that. You'll kill the wind industry in America and all the jobs that go with it. We've got to keep investing in solar. We've got to keep at it. I'm a big fan of geothermal technology. We've got to invest in that. And we've got to invest in other renewables like the biomass energy project I just mentioned. He'll put, that guy I just mentioned, Jim Taylor, he'll put 20 megawatts of renewable power right on the grid, right outside Stewart Airport. And he's got a long-term power purchasing agreement to do it with the Port Authority. He's right next door to Stewart Airport, right? So we've got to support projects like that that lower the price of renewable energies so that we can transition away from things like fossil fuels and things like Indian Point that present such terrible risk to us here in the Hudson Valley. But these require good choices. These require a federal government that says, look, we don't have all the answers, but man, we can support people and entrepreneurs who are out there risking their own capital, taking a chance at trying to do it. That's what Jim Taylor's doing. That's what the people I know in the wind and solar and geothermal industries are doing. And I want those jobs here. I want the Hudson Valley to lead the way on those jobs. But you're going to have someone in government who understands that it's their job to be your partner. And if you tell me to get out of the way, I will get out of the way. If you tell me you need a loan guarantee, I'm going to listen to you. And if you need help with something else, you're going to be able to call my office and get it. Because I view my job as a customer service representative. So whether it's helping you heat your home, whether it's helping you fill up the tank, it is my job to work for you. Thank you.
Nan, how would you address concerns about costs for gasoline and home heating oil and energy in general?
I'm exceedingly sympathetic to that because I have talked with, I just talked with a plumbing contractor over the summer who said, the cost of gasoline alone and diesel for his vehicles is something he can't afford to pass on to his customers in these tough economic times, and he needs something done about it now. A mom in Carmel who's paying $75 a tank for gas is going to have to cut down on her children's sports activities because she simply can't afford to drive them from place to place. We need energy solutions for the future, absolutely. And all of the above strategy, yes, but we need energy now. And everybody here knows, men and women in business know, supply and demand determines price. So we need to increase the supply of domestic energy today. In the House of Representatives, we have passed numerous pieces of legislation this year to try to get our domestic energy production going. You heard a big debate last night, of course, about energy production, but the fundamental fact is this. Gasoline, if we all go to the pump, gasoline is hovering around $4 a gallon. If we build that pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline from Canada, that will help us immediately. That will put price pressure on foreign countries supplying oil to us immediately. If we activate our domestic drilling capabilities, our offshore drilling, that will help immediately. We need to look at these sources. We need to look at safe recovery of natural gas in the Marcellus Shale. It has to be done right. It has to be done with caution and care. That's why I commend Governor Cuomo for his approach. Clean, safe, and follow home rule. Let's do those things. Let's keep Indian Point open, because that's a crucial source of local energy, and it only emits steam, not carbon. Great clean source. In the meantime, let's keep working absolutely on the whole portfolio of energy solutions for the future. But right now, you need relief so that we can get our economy going and support all the research that we need to have a clean, renewable future.
Sean, what would you do to promote efficient and effective government at the federal, state, and local levels?
Well, I've had the opportunity in my career to work at the federal, state, and local level, both in the public and the private sector. So I mentioned to you that I worked on the White House senior staff. I was the White House staff secretary. The job of the staff secretary is to handle the daily workload of the president and to review all the materials that go to the president of the United States. It's a terrific way to get a solid grounding in everything that's coming across the desk of the president. It includes all the national security information and all of the decisions that he had to make. So when you're working side by side with Bill Clinton for 3 years, you get to see a lot about how the federal government works and doesn't work. I also had the opportunity to work for 2 governors of New York as the first deputy secretary. That's the #2 person in the governor's office. And what I focused on was education and infrastructure policy. So I mentioned I created the Public-Private Partnership Commission. This was an idea, my idea, to create billions of dollars of new infrastructure investment right here in the Hudson Valley and throughout New York, with public dollars working alongside private dollars. I don't think the public sector has all the answer. I think we've got to partner with the public and private sector working together. And I, of course, spent a lot of years working in the different communities I've had the opportunity to serve. But I think the #1 thing you got to do is you've got to see your job as partnering with folks in the private sector. So if you look at the walkway over the Hudson, for example, I mean, what a terrific example of where a public sector public servant like Maurice Hinchey saw an opportunity to help the local community. But it wouldn't have happened without private folks. It wouldn't have happened without visionaries like Rob Dyson and others, who said we have a role to play alongside our public partner. And the public and the private sectors working together created something new, created something wonderful that is worth far more than the investment that was made in it, and restored something wonderful and made a whole connection and a whole destination that didn't exist before. That's the public and private sector working together, and that's what I've done throughout my career, and that's what I'll do if you give me a chance to serve you in Washington.
Nan, what would you do to promote efficient and effective government at the federal, state, and local levels?
We've all seen the effects of the attitude of the federal government over the past several years in its seemingly endless desire to take from you what you work so very hard for. I don't know anybody who works harder for a dollar than folks who actually have to run their own business and make a payroll. And I did it. I did it myself for 7 years. I grew my medical practice in Mount Kisco. And I know what it's like. And I worked 7 days a week on that practice. When you send your dollars to Washington, they have to be used wisely. They have to be directed toward purposes that make sense, that fulfill the responsibilities that the federal government has. And there are plenty of them. They ought to be on a budget. We have Social Security and Medicare to keep going for the future, for the seniors who depend on them. We have a national defense to take care of. We have veterans to honor. We have a social safety net that everybody agrees we need to maintain. So when we have a federal government that takes stimulus dollars, so-called stimulus dollars from you, because they came from you, and spends nearly $1 trillion worth of them, with the result being that we have 8.9% unemployment in Orange County, New York, above the national average. We have 43 months of 8% unemployment plus throughout the country. We know the federal government is not doing its job right. We need the federal government to stop trying to pick winners and losers in the private sector, such as Solyndra and many more that we can all name, and start focusing on what it needs to do according to a budget plan that we pass in the House of Representatives, not just once but twice. We need a federal government that understands that we have to grow an economy by keeping dollars in your pockets. You are are the energy, you are the multiplier that makes opportunity, that makes jobs, that puts people back to work. And when we understand that, and we have a federal government that's restrained in the right size, we will succeed.
Nan, what is your position on affordable health care?
Well, you know I'm a doctor. Practiced for 16 years in Mount Kisco. Cherish my patients, thank you. Cherish my patients. No one would ever object to the goals of that 2010 law. They're